Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate Day number 923, October 11th, 2019, Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get to the news of the day. Let's go ahead and start right here with Quid Pro Quo Joe. So it looks like the Gateway Pundit is reporting, and other media sites as well, reporting that the Democrat that the so-called whistleblower is close to or had a professional relationship with is Joe Biden. And of course that's exactly who I suspected, because really it could only have been two people, because there's only two people who worked in the Obama White House where this so-called CIA whistleblower would have worked. We know he worked in the White House during the Obama administration. And there's only two of the candidates who worked in the Obama White House during the Obama years, and that would be Biden and Castro. And I wouldn't put a lot of stock in Castro, so I think Biden was the obvious choice. It was certainly my first gut thought when I heard this. So it doesn't surprise me that it is Joe Biden who is the Democrat that the so-called whistleblower has a professional relationship with. Should not surprise us at all. Still don't know who the so-called whistleblower is, but every day more and more information comes out that would describe him, and so it's only a matter of time before someone figures it out. You just have to plug in all the variables and then plug in the possible names and then narrow them down. And it seems like every day we get a little bit more information. And keep in mind, there's quite a few people who know who this is. So it's just a matter of time before some loose lips begin to sink some ships. So I would expect it won't be long until we'll find out who this person is. I don't think it matters a whole lot at this point. I think this whole thing is pretty much... I think this thing is pretty much, as far as the whistleblower and the accusations of the second whistleblower, his accusations, none of this really matters anymore. Trump released the transcript. We have the transcript. So what the whistleblower says or believes or imagines doesn't really matter. We have the transcript, okay? And the transcript does not show anything illegal or criminal or anything else. So you can put all that to bed. The only thing now that the Democrats can possibly do is say, well, the White House is not producing witnesses or not producing documents, therefore they're obstructing, therefore we're going to impeach under obstruction or something like that. But the original point of the obstruction, alleged obstruction, or the crime associated to it, would be, of course, what was learned from the whistleblower. But again, it's irrelevant because we got the transcript and we know that what the whistleblower complained about really had no basis in fact. So it's all again, it's just a big show. But the Democrats really don't care because they just want to impeach Trump. And all they're really trying to do is give the media enough information that they can run with it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that they can keep pushing it and pushing it, pushing it, until they finally get that magic number of 50.1%. And once they get 50.1%, then Pelosi will feel comfortable with actually laying out some impeachment articles, or an article, or what have you. I still think that there's going to be huge problems with this because the process, having it run through a committee headed by a very partisan Democrat, is probably not going to carry the day. It will be challenged in court and they will lose in court. So that's where this will ultimately end up, in the courts. Or even if McConnell chooses to take it on over in the Senate, I imagine that he could take it up and say, okay, we're taking it up and I'm tabling this. So he can table it in the same motion. He can take it up. It won't go anywhere. But even if they were, let's just say that they did hold a trial in the Senate, that means that on the Republican side, they would be able to have witnesses and subpoena and all kinds of people. And the very first person they would subpoena is Hunter Biden, followed by Joe Biden, followed by this ambassador, followed by the rotten Reverend Clinton, followed by Obama, followed by every corrupt Ukrainian that they can find who was cooperating with the corrupt Obama administration. And so what you would end up with is that this would do far more damage to Democrats and Obama than it would to Trump. And so this is why I don't think that it will go forward, because the Democrats in the Senate would not even want it to go forward. I think that the only thing they're really looking for is just to get as much media play out of this as they can until they can find the next thing to jump onto. As soon as they do, and they're looking for it now because they know this is a sinking ship, they'll latch onto that, and this will be completely forgotten about. The media will completely wipe the slate clean. They won't bring it up again, and they'll go on to the next thing. And who knows what that will be. I mean, we've had the taxes, we've had the Saggy Daniels, we've had obstruction, we've had Russia collusion, we've had the emoluments, we've had this, we've had that. It's just they have to find the next thing. And once they find it, they'll drop this like a hot potato and move on to something else. The idea is to keep this up until November of 2020 on the day of the election. And so this is not going to stop. It really doesn't matter what the shiny object is. It really doesn't matter. This whistleblower thing is just another ploy, and this will fade and fail, and something else will come to replace it, and it will continue on and on and on. And this is going to happen until the Democrats finally lose their power and they can no longer be in charge of the situation where they can carry out this type of nonsense. That's why, I think it's super important that the Republicans not only hold the Senate and gain a few seats, but that they win back the House. They should really be focusing very hard on winning back the House. And there's a lot of vulnerable Democrats, and that's where they need to focus. And it looks like to me, if you look at what's going on with the RNC, that's exactly what they're doing. So you have some pretty decent people there at the RNC now, since Trump's been elected. Prior to that, they sucked. But now you have some, Ronna McDaniel, I think, is pretty good. I like her, and there's some other good people around her. Kayleigh McEnany is pretty good. So you have some good people, and I think that their current plan to target these vulnerable Democrats in these 45 to 50 seats, I think is exactly the right move. And so I think if they just stay with that plan, they have a very good chance. Now, Trump is, of course, in Minnesota giving a speech, and, of course, it was massively sold out. Tens of thousands of people lining the streets. It's a huge rally. This is right in Omar's district. It is, of course, in a state that has been a blue state for so long. I mean, I can't remember the last Republican that won Minnesota. I'm not even sure if Nixon won Minnesota. I know Reagan did not win Minnesota in the year he ran against Mondale. But Minnesota is probably seen as one of the toughest blue states to turn in the upper Midwest. But Trump only lost there by 1.5%. So since then, we have seen quite a few local elections in there which have elected Republicans. So it appears that it's moving, it's trending towards being like a Wisconsin or a Pennsylvania that could be right on the border. It could trend, and all it needs is a little push to push it over the top. And of course, we know that Trump wants to win Minnesota bad. The Republicans really believe they have a shot there. He's visited there quite a few times, so have other Republicans, and I think that they're going to put a lot of emphasis on Minnesota in 2020, and I think that their odds are very good there, and they should continue to do this. And there's a couple states out west. I think Oregon is a place that they should put some effort into. I don't know so much about Washington, possibly. I mean, I would put some resources in there. I would see what you can do. California is probably not ready to turn yet, but we'll have to see where we are in the summer of 2020, what that looks like. But yeah, I mean, it's all good at this point. I think that they should continue what they're doing at the RNC. I think they're on the right track, and it's good to see that Trump is taking his case, and it's very good to see the massive turnout he had in Minnesota, which just sort of reinforces that people all over the country, if they're paying attention, know exactly what is going on. And this is without the FISA report coming out. This is without the Durham Barr investigation being completed. Once all that happens, I believe that will pretty well guarantee Trump's reelection and cost the Democrats probably the House of Representatives, and they'll probably lose seats in the Senate as well, even though the Republicans are defending 2-1. I think that they'll do very well as long as Barr and Durham do their job and the Horowitz support actually tells the truth. I think that those will be two key factors which are largely going to put out a lot of these brush fires that the Democrats are trying to start. They'll have a very difficult time trying to start these brush fires once Durham, Barr, and the Horowitz report come out, if in fact they come out and actually do what they should do, tell the truth and do it right. So I'm feeling pretty good about things. It's a little frustrating to watch this go by every day, but I do believe, as frustrating as it is, I do believe that we're winning this fight. Yes, I'm aware of the polls that show 50% of the people want Trump impeached or what have you, or investigated or what have you. I saw the Fox News poll like most of you did. I just don't put much stock in it. I really don't. And I just think that it's these polls. I mean, you don't know what the polls say. These are a lot of push polls, by the way, and we don't know how they word the questions or anything else. It's just hard for me to believe that people who voted for Trump, who are watching closely what is going on, would suddenly think that it's a good idea to impeach him. I'm not buying it. So we'll continue to have to deal with this. But like I say, the quicker that the Horowitz report comes out, assuming he's done his job, and of course following up on that, Barr and Durham, that should just about settle everything. There shouldn't even be a question about which way this is going to go in 2020 if everyone does their job. Now let's get back to Biden for just a minute. As we can see, Joe Biden's clearly frustrated. We had the MSNBC interview with a liberal journalist telling the panel that they're getting very frustrated because Biden is simply not really granting interviews because he doesn't want to answer the questions that even the left-wing media is asking him about Ukraine. We know that he has thrown Obama under the bus twice in the last 2 weeks, and now he's done it again. Today, the Biden campaign released another statement, and this time they're saying that the Obama White House gave approval for Hunter Biden to be on the board of Burisma in 2014. So he uses the term Obama White House is what's in the statement, but that would be Obama. I mean, you can say Obama White House, but Obama certainly would have been he would have been told about something like this. This is not something that's going to fly by because it's, the president has his own staff. Just like the vice president, he has his own advisors. These stories were being written back in 2014, 2015. Certainly someone had to come to Obama at some point and say, hey, this thing with Biden, I mean, with his kid and Burisma and all this kind of stuff, it probably isn't good for you, Mr. President. It just doesn't look good. I mean, so I don't know, what you might want to do about that, but you should be aware of it, and I'm sure you agree it doesn't look good. So I wouldn't be least bit surprised to find out that this is actually true, that Obama White House did give the approval for Hunter Biden to be on the board of Burisma in 2014. That may be perfectly well true, but I'll tell you this, Obama, of course, who's staying very quiet lately, will not come out and admit to this. I guarantee he will not come out and admit to this. If they go to anyone in the Obama White House, Obama himself, Ben Rhodes, Valerie Jarrett, anyone else on his staff, his press secretary, anyone, if they go to them and say, hey, the Biden campaign put out this statement yesterday, can you back that up, that the Obama White House did give approval for Hunter Biden to be on the board of Burisma? I will almost guarantee you that they will not confirm that. They'll probably say no comment, I can't confirm that, it's not as simple as that, something like that. They're not going to come out and make a blanket statement, anyone, former official from the Obama administration, and say, oh yeah, Obama was totally good, the Obama White House was totally good with Biden Jr. being on the board of Burisma. No, that's not going to happen. And you got to know, Obama has got to be really pissed. He keeps having himself dragged into Joe Biden's nightmare. And, this is exactly why Obama didn't want Biden out there running. Because he knows that anything that sticks to Biden is going to stick to Obama, because that was his VP. And so it's kind of hard for Obama to distance himself from his vice president. And Biden is continuing to do things and say things and put out these types of things that are certainly not things that Obama wants to be hearing about, or things he certainly doesn't want people talking about. So I don't expect that anyone in the media is going to go ask Obama or any of his White House officials because they give him total protection. But certainly this shows you that Biden is fairly desperate, and he's, in a way, you can say he's throwing Obama under the bus. This is not something Obama wants to hear, and it shows that Biden is constantly having to go back and lean on Obama and on Obama's reputation. And this is just another example of that, and it's going to get old fast. And there's 14 months to go. Does Obama want to have 14 more months of quid pro quo Joe out there leaning on him, sucking off him? I don't think so. And I wonder if it's just a matter of time before someone close to Obama sends Biden a message, or people in his campaign a message, to say, hey, tell Joe to stop dragging me into his mess. That's probably coming if it hasn't happened already. Well, of course, most of you have heard by now that the DOJ has arrested two Ukrainians that have been helping Giuliani with his investigation into the Bidens. And this arrest occurred right after, literally 4 hours after Giuliani had had lunch with these two Ukrainians. They were getting ready to board a plane and they were arrested. It appears that they were going to be indicted on 4 counts. The more, serious one, would be the campaign finance violations. So we will have to see. I imagine that Giuliani will most likely be either on Hannity or Ingram or Lou Dobbs or somewhere. He'll be somewhere on Fox tonight to comment on this. I'll be interested to watch that and see what his comment is. I haven't heard Giuliani's comment on this yet, but obviously he's been saying in the past couple of weeks that they've been targeting him since he came out with this information, and you can expect that this is just another attack on Giuliani to try to shut him down. I don't think it's going to work, and we'll just have to see what the DOJ has on these two Ukrainians. I just don't know. And of course, we're starting to see some Dems who are cracking, the kamikaze demo commies, cracking and breaking ranks. You had a demo commie this morning go on, I think it was Fox, and say that he thinks that they should do a full House vote if they actually want to do this impeachment, that they should follow that process. There's rumors, or people talking, that there are other Democrats who are quite nervous about the tactics being used by Madam Botox, and that they too believe if she's going to do it, she needs to do it with the proper historical precedent, and not the way that she's doing it now. So it's making a lot of vulnerable Democrats very, very nervous, the way that Pelosi is handling this thing, and it very well should. And I would expect to see that, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors in the Democratic Party. We can certainly get a sense of what's been going on for the past couple of years since they won back the House. We know the type of pressure Pelosi is under from the far left, and we know the political pressure she's under from all sides, including these Democrats who are sitting in districts that Trump won. So we don't know what really is going on in the backstage boogie here, but you can be sure that there's a lot of infighting probably going on. There's a lot of disagreement over how to handle all of this and what they're doing and why they're doing it. And again, I think as their position becomes weaker, we're going to see a lot of this exposed. And I think most of this is going to be really going to come out. It's really going to be exposed, I think, when they get to the convention. And you never know what can happen in the Democratic convention. And especially when you got the rotten Reverend Clinton hovering overhead, eyeing the dying carcasses of Sanders and Biden. There's another strategy, which I haven't even brought up yet, that the rotten Reverend Clinton could use. And it's something that kind of goes back even before we were talking about the rotten Reverend Clinton. There were people talking a couple of months ago, early on when these debates first began. You had all these candidates. You had like 20 some odd candidates. You still have, 12 or 13. And there doesn't seem to be a full consensus. Biden is wobbling. Warren is apparently either taking him over or right on his tail. And a lot of these people, Bernie may not drop out. He may stay in it. And a lot of these people may stay in. They'll stay in as long as they've got the money to do so. And, what you could see, and this would actually work in favor, again, of the rotten Reverend Clinton, because the rotten Reverend knows that the more she's out there, the more unpopular she is. She also knows she runs the risk of jumping in the race, and if she doesn't get rid of Biden and Warren, she likely would not be the front runner. She would be number 3 probably behind Biden and Warren. She knows that. That's why she has to get rid of Biden and Warren. But there's also the possibility that if she can't get rid of Biden and Warren, if they can both somehow survive her attacks, that she can just keep making public appearances, keep raising money, stay in the game, and allow the Democrats to go into convention without a clear frontrunner, in which case you would have a brokered convention. Then what the Right Reverend Clinton could do is during a brokered convention, she could allow herself to go on the ballot. And the DNC would probably go along with that because she runs the DNC. She would have enough people behind the scenes, big money donors, delegates, the people who really matter, the big money people, the delegates, and the leadership at the DNC. As long as you've got those people on your team, then you could go into a brokered convention and you could probably come out with a win. And then the Right Reverend Clinton, this would mean that she could skip all the debates, she could skip the primaries, she could never have to go out and compete in any of it, she would never have to actually go out and campaign at all during the primaries at all. She could just hang around and wait for a brokered convention and come out on top. Now she would still have to campaign in the general, but by then she would feel that she's rested up enough or put herself in position she could make 4 or 5 month stretch. I don't think she believes she can make this stretch for the long term, and I think she knows really that if she entered the field, she might enter the field on day 1 or week 1 at the top, but her numbers would fall very, very quickly. And so that's why the Right Reverend Clinton knows that she has to be rid of Biden and Warren. If Biden and Warren are around, the Right Reverend Clinton is probably not going to be able to eclipse them. So this is another strategy. I think her first strategy is to get rid of Biden and Warren and have the draft Hillary. If that doesn't work, she can simply do her best to make sure that there's 5 or 6 candidates that enter the Democratic convention and possibly keep anyone from getting a majority, in which case you have a brokered convention. And then if you have a brokered convention and they toss Hillary's name in the hat and she's got control of the DNC, the donors, and the delegates, she could walk away with the nomination. So this is kind of a long shot. I don't think this is her first plan, but I do think it's probably a backup that she's considering. She hasn't come out and endorsed anyone or shown any. If anything, she should come out and endorse Biden, right? But she hasn't. And as far as we know, she's not donating money to any one of these candidates. We hear she's talking to Warren. That's because a lot of her people that were on her campaign are on Warren's campaign. But the Right Reverend Clinton doesn't necessarily love Warren. She would throw Warren under the bus in a minute to get her power. So as far as she's concerned, she probably looks at Elizabeth Warren and says, hey, I was supposed to be the first woman president. No way I'm going to sit back and let Warren become the first woman president. No way. She's taking my slot. That's my position. So I think that's the way the Right Reverend would look at it. Remember, she looks at this as the presidency or the Democratic nominee as being something that she owns. It's hers. And anyone else who tries to occupy it is taking away her property, essentially. So I think that's how the Right Reverend looks at it. And we'll just have to keep watching to see what she does. But she's lurking. She is lurking. Judicial Watch is reporting that a State Department official testified that the Right Reverend Clinton was informed of federal records management on at least 6 occasions in regards to compliance. In other words, this is not the first time I've heard this. Now, maybe it's just that they got the documents now, but this is something that was discussed well over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, that there was, I think it was actually someone testified, the people who actually are the ones who give the briefings to top State Department officials and give them a security briefing and advise them on what devices they can use or not use, how they should handle emailing classified documents, generally their handling of classified information. The Right Reverend Clinton was briefed on all of these things, and I think this came up a long time ago, back in like 2016, when the Clinton email investigation, the faux Clinton email investigation was happening. I think is when this first was brought up, was that there were people who were responsible for giving the security briefings or classes to high State Department officials, the Reverend Clinton being one of them, and that she was in fact briefed and told about all this, or that she signed off on a form saying she was understood clearly the rules and regulations governing the handling of classified information. So this is not really a new thing. I think it's just that with this recent reinvigorated investigation in the State Department and all these people that they're interviewing, they're getting this information from other people now than they had before. Maybe some of the same people, but certainly different people talking about the fact that, and there's more to this story, I just don't have time to go into it all, but there are quite a few people who've been interviewed in this latest State Department investigation that's kind of been reinvigorated, who are saying absolutely 100%. These people who've been given immunity are saying Clinton and the people around her, her top aides, absolutely 100% knew and were briefed about the handling of classified information and would have known that what they were doing was wrong. That's the bottom line. Well, we have the FBI telling this attorney, Ty Clevenger, who's handling this case associated with Seth Rich. The FBI is telling Ty Clevenger that they have no records on Seth Rich, and this is despite the fact that the FBI has already admitted that Seth Rich's DNC computer and his emails were investigated by the FBI. So if the FBI investigated his emails and his DNC computer, then they obviously have records on Seth Rich. But they're saying that they don't have any records on Seth Rich. Keep in mind that the reason that Clevenger did this request to the FBI was because he did a previous request to the NSA, and the NSA said, oh yeah, we have like 17 pages of stuff related to Seth Rich, but we can't turn that over to you because of national security. And so at this point, it looks like Clevenger is now asking the court to step in and force the release of these records. I'm pretty sure he's not going to have any success there. I think that would be great if that would happen, but I don't think that that's going to happen. Whether or not Barr and Durham, when they're looking into the origins and they're looking into maybe CrowdStrike, you're starting to get very, very close to into the general neighborhood of Seth Rich when you start looking into the origins, the DNC hack, alleged hack, and CrowdStrike. Seth Rich fits into that sort of, set of facts. So if you're looking into that, maybe they'll look into this as well. Certainly Barr and Durham could probably get these 17 pages on Seth Rich. And I really hope they do. I doubt they will, but I hope they do. Well, this anti-Trump ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Ivanovic, has now been found to have been monitoring the conversations of John Solomon and other U.S. journalists who were investigating Ukraine. And this is a fairly big deal here. Believe it or not, she was removed as ambassador by Trump back in May, but she continues to work at the State Department. I cannot explain that for the life of me. She's the one who was telling officials at the UN to ignore anything Trump says because he was going to be impeached. She's also believed to have been the one who blocked Ukrainian officials from traveling to the United States to deliver evidence of Obama administration misconduct during the 2016 elections. She's also believed to have been the one who gave prosecutors in Ukraine a list of people who they should prosecute and a list of people who they should not prosecute. And so with all this in mind, I can't imagine how she kept her job in the State Department. But this is now being investigated. Of course, she's being called, or has been called, as a witness for the Bug-Eyed Fool. And I would expect that the Republicans would just shred her on this stuff and more. So there's a lot of questions about this person. She should never be working for the United States government, for the U.S. taxpayer, ever, ever, with just what we know. And if any of this is true, she certainly needs to be prosecuted. Sick of these people. If you worked in the private sector and you conducted yourself this way, you would absolutely be fired. And depending on, the situation, that employer may even take you to civil court. So I wish as citizens we could take her to civil court, file a lawsuit against her. She works for us. Yes, she works for the president, she works for the government, she works for the State Department, but she also works for us. And I don't like having someone who works for me getting paid with my tax dollars, blocking investigations, telling foreign governments which corrupt people to investigate and not to investigate. She was up to her eyeballs in the 2016 stuff. I mean, I certainly hope Barr and Durham are putting a really sharp focus on this particular witch, and I certainly hope that she faces justice. We're also getting more details on the rotten Reverend Clinton story about her putting pressure on Ronan Farrow to drop the Weinstein story. But we're now getting more information, and I don't know if this is coming from the book or not, but we're getting more information that not only that, but that the rotten Reverend Clinton actually had her publicist contact NBC and tell NBC to drop the Weinstein story, and if they did not, that they would not be granted access to the Clinton campaign. That's typical textbook rotten Reverend right there. Exactly how she plays. And NBC fell in line, by the way. Remember, NBC did this. They pulled the Matt Lauer stuff for a very, very long time, only when these women came out on their own. And NBC could no longer hide and cover for Matt Lauer. Did they have to come and cut him loose? But they're still, and now they're talking all about Matt Lauer because he's gone. He's past history, and they can throw him under the bus. But it's funny that they're not revealing their own corruption. They're not coming out and talking about how they, at the very top of that network, top two people at that network, succumbed to Hillary's demands, and I'm sure that they're friends with him as well, with Weinstein as well. But they clearly are and were participants and are clearly as involved in covering up for Weinstein as anyone else. NBC, the very heads of NBC. So yeah, it's funny how NBC is not blowing the whistle on themselves. They're tearing what's his name up, Lauer. They're tearing him up, but they're not admitting to anything that they did. And of course, you would think the other networks might talk about this, but they won't. Maybe the Washington Times or the Washington Post or New York Times, you think they'll talk about this? Probably not. They're in the same group, and they take care of each other, let's say. They should be competitors. In the good old days, competing news agencies would never miss out on an opportunity like this. But as you can see, none of the other news organizations are going to take this incredibly golden opportunity they have to go right at one of their competitors and cost them serious viewership and point out their fraud and corruption. But this just shows you how deep the swamp is, that these people are connected at the hip and they share one goal, one common goal. And we're learning, of course, that one of the lawyers who worked with the whistleblower worked directly under Clapper, and was his inspector general at the IG. Now, this individual we've talked about before, Charles McCullough. He was the one who was forced out because he was the one who was trying to blow the whistle on the rotten Reverend Clinton. So he is now working at this firm which was working with the whistleblower. See how that works? There you go. That's the swamp right there. That's how it works in the swamp. Anybody is vulnerable, I guess you'd say. Anybody can be turned. I mean, it's sad, but that's the way it is. I mean, I thought this was a straight shooter back when we were covering him and talking about this, but as you can see, anyone apparently can be bought. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a good night. See you. Bye.